Hey y'all, Lance from Permanent Records here, back with another video. As most of you know, used record stores, well, record stores in general, usually carry one of two different types of records, or both. There's lots of stores out there that carry new records, and there's lots of stores that carry used. Many stores, as you know, carry new and used records, but very few of them carry original stock copies of vintage vinyl releases. Permanent Records has always been a source for original stock copies of interesting records from the past. One of those particular kinds of records came from a label called Clone Records out of Akron, Ohio. Clone existed for a very short period of time, just a matter of years, in the late 70s and into the early 80s. Released, I believe, about 12 records on their label, most of which were 45s. And Clone was run by the owner of Clone was Nick Nicholis, the lead singer of a band called the Bizarros, who, if you have not heard, you should absolutely check out. The Bizarros were an incredible, they have a proto-punk vibe, but their first LP came out in 1978. This is the first time I believe they appeared on an LP. This is a split 12-inch with another Akron-based group called the Rubber City Rebels. As you can see, it's called From Akron. It's on the Clone Records label. Cool logo, right? And yeah, this one was released in 1977. They had singles from around this time as well, and an EP. All of those, unfortunately, are long gone. When we first started carrying the Clone dead stock, if you will, the vintage original stock copies, we had all of the Bizarros 45s as well. All that remains from the original stock is the split 12-inch. This record is out of control. It's absolutely amazing. If there weren't stock copies floating around, this would easily be a $100 record, but we sell this for $27 here in the shop, sealed. So yeah, if you want a primer on the label, want to get a good idea of what you might be getting into with a band like the Bizarros, who went on to release an LP on Mercury Records, and as did the Rubber City Rebels. This is a great place to start. In addition, the only two other LPs on Clone were the Bowling Balls from Hell and the Bowling Balls 2 compilations. All of the records, or all of the, I should say, artists on the Bowling Balls from Hell comp are from Akron. They include Dennis DeFrange, who you may have heard in the background here. He's on here a total of 4 times, I believe, and this is another one of his tracks. He does instrumental, experimental, electronic music, and has never released anything, to my knowledge, outside of the tracks that are included on this particular compilation. Also included on Bowling Balls from Hell are the Waitresses, who you are surely familiar with if you know the song I Know What Boys Like. Well, that song was originally released on this compilation on the independent label Clone Records before it went on to major label Hitdom. And it was released actually under a different title. It's called Wait Here, I'll Be Right Back. And the Waitresses were not a group at this time. It was the doing of, it was a studio project, a home recording project by a gentleman named Chris, and his last name is Butler. And when the song I Know What Boys Like took off, Chris Butler had to scramble to get a group together to actually, tour and, record albums as the Waitresses. But this is where it all began. Also included on this comp are Ralph Carney, who is now the saxophonist for Tom Waits, but he was also at a band called Tin Huey, which I'll get back to later. And if you are familiar with the last name Carney, you may recognize it because one of the members, I'm spacing his, Dan Auerbach and something Carney are the guys from Black Keys. Anyway, he's on here twice. And then you also have Ralph Carney with David Thomas from Peruse, a band called the Half Nuts, and Hurricane Bob, who I remember sounding quite a bit like a lot of the artists that were on Flying Nun. So if you're into that sort of vibe, this is probably the best $12 you'll ever spend for an original 1980 pressing. So that's that. And then Nick Nicholis, after the success of Bowling Balls from Hell, he released another compilation called Bowling Balls 2. Not all of the bands here are from Akron. There is, I believe, a Japanese group on here called Totsuzan Dan Ball is the name of the group, and maybe one other artist that's not on Clone, or not from Akron. Obviously they are on Clone. But anyway, you got Hammer Damage on here. The Bizarros are also included here. And this compilation, even though I don't think it's quite as strong as the first one, has a lot to offer, especially at the low price point of $12. And this thing came out in 81. Yeah, 1981. So check out Bowling Balls and Bowling Balls 2. And just to get back to what we were talking about earlier and get into some of the 45 releases on Clone, we got the Waitresses. This is from well before, let's see what year. This was recorded in or released in 1977, well before I Know What Boys Like became a hit. This has two really odd, if you know Akron, you know Devo is from Akron. And a lot of these things will appeal to fans of Devo. They're experimental, art punk, if you will, art rock. And yeah, again, amazing stuff. The two songs on here sound nothing like what you may have heard later from the Waitresses. This is strange stuff. One side kind of reminds me of Chrome. That song's called Clones. And the other song, Slide, is kind of a boogie rock number that's a little funky, but super, super rad. And getting back to the band Tin Huey, which features the stylings of Ralph Carney, uncle, I believe, of the Carney of the Black Keys. We have 3 Tin Huey 45s on Clone. This one is an EP. It's self-titled. It's got 4 tracks on it. We also have the Breakfast with the Tin Hueys 45. This thing's great. Those first 2 that I mentioned are scrunky, kind of Beefheart influenced art rock. And then this last one, English Kids, is more of a pub rock kind of vibe. I mean, look at this sleeve, and if it doesn't scream, punky pub rock to you, then you don't really know what to look for. Anyway, just to kind of get into a few more, the last of the releases of the Clone label, we got a 45 by John Rader here. This guy kind of, it's like this is a lo-fi power pop record. If you dig things like Cleaners from Venus and R. Stevie Moore, that sort of vibe, or if you're just a fan of good songwriting and lo-fi kind of heartfelt vibe, definitely need to check that out. And there are a few more here. We got the Human Switchboard for fans of Devo, for sure. This thing is just like freaky art rock, new wave, if you will. Not exactly post-punk, but not far off. And then you got the Housekeepers, You Gotta Know. And again, this record was released in 1981. This is an original pressing, and it's only $4. That John Rader 45 is only $4 as well. All the other singles range from between $6 and $9, and we'll leave you with one of the coolest looking picture sleeves on Clone. This is Harvey Gold. Harvey Gold was also in the band Tin Huey. He released this solo 45 in 1977. And again, that's the Clone label. If you want to find out more about the Clone label, you can check out an old issue of the Record Collector News. I did an article about Clone, maybe even 2 parts in that newspaper. And I believe there's a lot more information on our website on all of these artists. We did long write-ups on each one of these releases in an email newsletter that we sent out when we first started carrying these releases. And all of them are available in the shop and on our website at permanentrecordsla.com. Thank you for tuning in and staying to the end of this video. I hope you learned a thing or two. I hope I piqued your interest about the Clone record label. I hope you check some of these things out, and some of them are to your liking and you come buy them from us. Thank you again. Have a great day, and don't forget, like and subscribe down below to stay posted and keep in touch. We appreciate you following us and you watching our videos. Until next time. Whoops! In my previous video, or actually the video that you just watched, I forgot to mention 2 Clone releases. First and foremost, we got this Unit 5 LP called Scared of the Dark. This is what we're listening to in the background. Female fronted, kind of power poppy new wave stuff. Really, really catchy tunes. Also on Clone Records, the 4th LP that they did. And they did this 12-inch single by Gray Bunnies. It's got a wacky isn't the right word. It's got a fun, upbeat, kind of quirky pop song called Cigarette on it. And it also has a cover of the Phil Spector produced hit, He Hit Me and It Felt Like a Kiss. Controversial tune in general. It's a good cover, but if you don't like that song, get it for Cigarette. This record's only $4. The Unit 5's only $10. Both original pressings on Clone Records from Akron, Ohio.